What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 596 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. It's KB and Matt coming at you with a little remote setup tonight, as we are also live on the Bird app, and we are live on Facebook, like the good old days, so shout out to our followers there. You're getting the podcast early. We got a lot to dive into, from the Eagles and the mess that was Monday Night Football to the Phillies being a back burner team, allegedly, for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the Japanese phenom pitcher. The Sixers are playing as we are recording this, so we'll keep some tabs on the basketball team. Flyers keep winning, and we got the PLL Championship Series schedule for the Water Dogs, so we'll break that down in a easy fashion for everybody, and we'll get more detailed on the Outside the Box podcast this week, which you should subscribe to as well. And I know Matt's in a good mood because Liverpool just got a kick-ass win today. So stay tuned if you're watching live, because Top Bins will follow right after Underground Sports Philadelphia on all platforms. But before we get into everything, make sure you're subscribed and following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI, and Twitch.tv/Underground Sports PHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Goes a long way for helping this show continue to hit milestones, helps us grow the podcast and our network as a whole. As Top Bins, you guys just have Grecian fans firmly entrenched in the top 200 over in Greece. So shout out to
the Mediterranean Brotherhood.
Shout out to Stavros Halkias. Maybe he's sending it to his family over there. But subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio platform you decide to use. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We hit our milestone for the year-end goal of 700-plus subscribers. Keep subscribing, as we're on that road to 800, 900, 1,000, and beyond. But shout out to all of the people that tuned into F1 Underground's live stream last night of their episode. They came through in bunches and got us over the 700 mark as soon as I woke up this morning, so that was really cool to see for us, as we still got some time before the ball drops there in Times Square. So keep subscribing, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. And, of course, this podcast is presented by the City of Vineland. You see that logo up if you're watching it on YouTube right now. The City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest, and the calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages, and through these tools you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. Matt, what's going on, brother?
I'm living the dream.
The Philadelphia Eagles are certainly not living a dream, but as we have deduced many times on this podcast, nightmares also classify as dreams. Look it up. It's brought to you by our awesome merch partners at PHI Apparel Company, the best merch partners in the game. From hoodies to t-shirts and all of our Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast franchises, you can look, styling, and profiling heading into the new year. Treat yourself this holiday season. Get your Philly dog shirts. Gear up for the Sixers, the Flyers, even the Phillies a little bit early. Go to phiapparel.co. Link is in the description. And when you go to checkout, use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all merch orders. It's the most effective and direct way to support everything we're doing here at Underground Sports Philadelphia. So go get your merch, phiapparel.co, code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. Matt, it seems like a little Chicken Little is going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. The sky seems to be falling on Eagles Twitter and with the fan base after just an inexcusable loss on Monday night to the Seattle Seahawks, where you let Drew Lock go 92 yards down the field and score a game-winning touchdown, passing it to a rookie. And apparently we are switching defensive coordinator duties once again this week, as Sean Desai is back in the play caller's chair, and it just seems like a whole hell of a lot of panicking is going on at the NovaCare complex.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern, is that the reaction to the losses. I don't think it was really shocking to see the Eagles drop 2 games against the 49ers and Cowboys. But I do think the reaction afterwards of quiet, you've heard of quiet quitting. Now get ready for quiet firing of Sean Desai. I didn't even know about it. I saw you Sunday and you were like, oh, by the way, Desai's not the defensive coordinator. But now he is again. To me, that just doesn't pass the smell test. Like, good teams don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that. If that's a Cowboys thing, you're making fun of it.
Right.
If that is New York Giants behavior.
It's a Chargers thing.
Right. That's just not a move that you like, especially Matt Patricia of all people too, a guy that has a terrible reputation and deservedly so. A guy that I think handed the Eagles a Super Bowl, because of how bad that Patriots defense was on that game. So. Really concerning. I think this is the most concerning loss of the bunch. I think the losing to the 49ers and Cowboys makes you rethink your Super Bowl aspirations and whether or not you're really a qualified team. This makes me worried about getting to the second weekend in the playoffs, a loss like this, because if Drew Lock can put together a 92-yard touchdown drive on you, any quarterback can. You're telling me Tommy DeVito can't do that, or Tyrod Taylor? I mean, honestly, they've put together, good bits and pieces. And if Drew Lock, it's the Mendoza line in baseball. It is the Drew Lock line in football of guys that if your defense can't handle Drew Lock, you're in trouble. And that's been, I think, a big flashing sign for the Eagles all season, has been defensively just not good enough, especially, in the secondary, and have just been getting exploited time and time again. Doesn't help that you had a few guys out, but everyone does this time of year. I think the cause for alarm, I think, is actually pretty legitimate, and I agree with, because this loss and the way you lose, I think, has me concerned about this team making it out of the wild card round, honestly.
It's even more concerning when, before we went live, the Eagles' official Twitter account is posting anonymous attaboy, like, we're never losing the faith type of tweets that they're getting, and erased whoever's handles they were. So it's just a bunch of like random non-cited quotes from alleged fans. And it's like, shout out to Eagles Nation for keeping the positivity. And it's like, you don't realize what you just unleashed by putting that out on social media. Like, that is like, you broke glass in case of emergency, needed something to post, and now whoever the social manager is for the Eagles is going to get absolutely roasted in the comments.
It's like that Nathan Fielder meme where it's like me with all my friends laughing. They're just out of view of the camera. It's like, wow, really appreciate all the support, guys. Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
It's the party meme where like you're standing in the corner. It's like, they don't realize that we're fucked.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
And I mean, it wasn't even like the young guys on Monday night that were the problem in the secondary. Short, Sidney Brown had quite a disastrous game in terms of tackling, and that is just a team effort across the board, where we need to find a machine that is like the opposite of the Jugs machine for tackling, because this team simply has no clue how to wrap up when somebody's coming at them. Kelly Ringo and Eli Ricks covered their assignments very well. Drew Lock went 0 for 5 when targeting players covered by those two. It was James Bradbury that got absolutely torched when he was covering either DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. I think Drew Lock went 7 of 8 for 95 yards when targeting James Bradbury. And then for him after the game to come out and say that he was just playing the sticks on the last play defensively where they score the touchdown, it's like, that's the last thing you should be doing in a situation where the other team is trying to go down the field and win the game. Playing a sticks defense will absolutely get you torched. And it's also not great when you have the Manning cast going on and Christian McCaffrey is calling out plays left and right that the Eagles are running because of how predictable their offense is.
Yeah, I mean, especially, again, I can't emphasize this enough. You knew Drew Lock was going to have to throw the ball. Like, this is what has me worried, is you knew what they were going to have to do, and it is Drew Lock throwing the football. Like, it's a bad situation, and he had played last week, so you have film with him with the Seahawks. You're like, this really should not have been a place where you lose in that way. So that's a big concern, especially defensively too. You're not even just a secondary. The Eagles took a strategy and have taken a strategy, especially under Howie Roseman, of kind of maximizing in certain areas and being willing to live with like minimum value contracts and stuff. And we've seen that with the linebacking crew, and that's fine, right? Kind of the middle of the defense has sort of been, we can get by if our defensive line and our two cornerbacks are elite or can get us really, really great play. We've invested a lot of money in draft capital in that. We talk a lot about the passing attack. I haven't seen a lot from this. It's obviously going to be a letdown from last season when you're on a record-breaking pace in sacks. Right? We all knew that was not going to be this year. That we were going to have regression, but it has not been this year what you would expect when you're paying the money and have guys in top 10 picks, top 15 picks on that line. Hassan Reddick, I know he's had some injuries this year, but like still, you'd like a little more production. Jalen Carter, he's a rookie. You don't want to be too hard on him, but again, like you had a good few weeks, especially beating up on lesser opponents. You hope that in late December, this is a guy that can start to actually, I don't know, really, really make an impact on the team. And 2 sacks in this game. You only hit Drew Lock 3 times. Like I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of everyone's going to talk about the passing defense, and rightly so, because that's been the issue all year. But I think you're also seeing that this team is not applying the same pressure, which doesn't help what is a really lackluster sort of secondary crew right now. And this was a concern coming into the year too with the secondary too. We talked about how cornerbacks above 30 don't play. Like there's 3 other guys that have done this. It's no surprise that you're missing games. It's no surprise you're seeing a drop in quality, because it's unheard of. It just really is.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be without Darius Slay for who knows how much more time. And as much shit as fans have given Darius Slay, he's arguably been one of your top defensive performers this year. Whenever you look at the tape, whenever you look at the stats, Darius Slay is right there, and he's playing fantastic. It's just the other side of the field that's getting exposed, and everyone wants to blame Darius Slay for that. Well, you saw it on Monday night when Darius Slay wasn't in there. You had rookies step up in a big spot for you, but James Bradberry, the guy that you coerced to come back, didn't live up to the expectation. This is multiple times now that James Bradberry's done this for you. Did in the Super Bowl with the ticky-tack, holding call and everything, and say what you want about that. It still inevitably cost the Eagles a Super Bowl. And I mean, across the board, like you said, with the pass rush, like Hassan Reddick's leading the way with 11 sacks. And sure, like you said, he wasn't going to replicate what he did last year with 22 and a half or whatever amount of sacks he had. But like, that's your only guy on this defensive line with double-digit sacks on the year, and you have 3 games left. The next guy in line is Josh Sweat, who has 6.5, and then Fletcher Cox is tied for 3rd with Jalen Carter for 5 sacks, and then it knocks down to Brandon Graham, Nicholas Morrow, Jordan Davis, all with more than 1 sack. They're just not getting after the quarterback, and that was a huge part of this defense last year, where they were able to kind of take control of games, and you're just not seeing it at the rate that you would want. Sure, you're not going to get close to the 85 Bears again like you did last year, but there's clearly been a schematic drop-off. There's clearly been just a play-calling drop-off, and that's on both sides of the ball. We haven't even talked about the offense where, like I said, Christian McCaffrey's out there knowing exactly what play you're running, and he's sitting at home in California and knows exactly what the play call is because of who is in on that possession. There's no creativity to the offense, and I think that's something that Shane Steichen was fantastic at last year, and you're seeing it with the Colts this year where they just get creative, and that's why the Colts, even though they're playing with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback right now because Anthony Richardson got hurt, they're still in the playoff mix because Shane Steichen knows how to call an offense. Brian Johnson just feels so in over his head, and at this point in the season, you can't expect play calling to change because it's so ingrained with the team now.
Yeah, absolutely. Christian McCaffrey, what are you doing on Sundays? Because we could work out some kind of remote. You could call in and maybe maybe get some Shanahan love. Listen, everyone's been on poaching the Shanahan tree of coaches. What if we just pay a current player to just give us I don't know what the rules are. I'm sure there is a rule somewhere, but I think what was encouraging was the first drive looks really good.
Yes.
And this to me is the issue with the Eagles when we talk about the difference from last year to this year. Last year, what the Eagles did so well was adjustments in game, and it felt like maybe like they just had a way of throughout the game of figuring out ways to win, and that's something you've seen with Shane Steichen replicated now. And it clearly was very much a Shane Steichen sort of led decision making there, right? Because this team this year, that first drive, which is clearly very scripted, clearly something they worked on all week. They cancel the walkthrough on Thursday, and they're actually practicing. Like they're clearly come out with a defined game plan. But throughout the rest of the game, it's the same kind of stop-start thing that we've seen all year. And I think, too, you were hoping that, listen, it's no surprise that when you play the Cowboys, you play the Giants, the Chiefs, even the Dolphins have been like a really top-5 defense over the last month and a half. It's no surprise your offense doesn't look great against those teams. It's always going to be a challenge. This was not it's not the most elite defense that you're facing in Seattle. This is a team that's actually been struggling lately. And I can't stress this enough. Drew Lock is the quarterback of this team. It's a game you expect to get good field position. And that's what's frustrating. And there's late drives where Jalen Hurts is throwing away picks. I think you could very reasonably ask the question why we're taking big shots in those moments too. It felt like, and this is what worries me, is it there was some desperation there. I feel like in that I think this team has lost a little bit of that mental edge, and I think understood in the moment that they were really messing up. Like this is a huge loss, not just in the standings, but like this is a mental loss that I worry about the recovery from that. The good medicine is you've got the Giants twice in the next 3 weeks. The bad part of that is Drew Lock just beat you. It's honestly like anyone else beating you is very much on the table. It just is. So that's where you're at with them, and I think it's a really frustrating loss, and I don't blame anyone for being alarmed by this because I think you can wash away some of the other stuff due to strength of the schedule. This is tough. And you shouldn't say too, Jalen Hurts had the flu or whatever he had.
Yes.
So like there is that angle, but that doesn't hand away away a lot of the other stuff.
It's also very weird that he always gets sick whenever the Eagles play Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not quite Lamar Jackson, where like Lamar Jackson every year is like very ill. And I don't know. Listen, brother, it's a bad time of year. I don't know. Do something different.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, just stop doing that. But everyone's getting sick, so I don't know.
And I mean, I said it on Monday night's show. Like, it feels like the Eagles, for what the kids say, they lost that dog in them this year. Like, there's no killer instinct. There's no like finishing move to them. And like you said, like there was a lot of desperation plays. Like we as a society and we as Eagles fans and the Eagles coaching staff needs to realize this. We have moved past the need to throw deep balls to Quez Watkins. That dude, there's no need for him to be on the field. I get he's fast. Compare the stats, put them side by side. Every single day of the week and twice on Sunday or whenever the Eagles are playing, I would much rather have Olamide Zaccheaus in the slot because the dude has hands, the dude knows how to track a football, and that's the biggest problem with Quez Watkins. Like, he's running down the field and has no clue how to track the football, and that's what leads to that interception. That's what led to the interception in the Super Bowl. Like, he just does not have the wherewithal to know when to track a football, and if you're going to be on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, you can't have guys like that out on the field. And it's just getting so frustrating seeing them try to continue to do this like ticky-tack type of stuff with veterans when it's like, play the guys that are good. Like, play your best players. It's that point in the season. You've all but effectively thrown away your shot at the 1 seed now. And now, like you said, you got to play Tommy DeVito twice. You got to play at MetLife, and most of your starters are going to have to play on that atrocious field now, more than likely. And you got to play against Jonathan Gannon coming into Philadelphia on New Year's Eve.
Well, you maybe don't, because if things go bad and the Cowboys, win, like, that's it. It may honestly, you might not have to. And that's the frustrating thing. Right now, it's just you start looking ahead to potential playoff matchups, and you don't feel good about a lot of the matchups in the NFC, right, for where the Eagles sit. Right now, you'd be going to Tampa Bay. People are going to like scoff at that. Baker Mayfield just threw like a perfect game, essentially. He had a perfect passer rating. Now, granted, Green Bay's defense not very good. Oh wait, the Eagles' defense also not very good. Oh, Green Bay's coordinator is washed and has failed at multiple locations. Wow, it's almost like we have the same issues here. Like that's not
Can't stop
that's
the
not
run
an
either,
easy,
and Rashad White's
that's
running for 100 yards every single week.
that's not exactly a slam dunk matchup right there. And it is likely to be Tampa Bay. But let's say you get to 2. You feel good about playing the Rams right now?
Nope.
I don't. I don't feel good about playing the Rams or facing the Seahawks again. Like it's it's really worrying now because it didn't feel this way. It felt like, listen, like everything's gonna be fine. They're gonna get to the playoffs. This team, I even felt like this team has like their win conditions are very favorable. It felt like a lot of times this year, like they just have to do less than a lot of other teams have to do. It's really turned, and it's really turned into a situation now too where I don't know that this team has a lot of answers. Maybe they find them over the next few weeks. Maybe they get some of that confidence back. Maybe this team ends up being the 2 seed, and we all kind of forget about this panic. But the larger problem still looms, which is if this team plays the 49ers, I do not believe that this team is beating the 49ers, especially if they're going to San Francisco. I think they'll be lucky if it was only whatever it was, 49-20.
Yeah.
I think right. Honestly, if they play like that against the 49ers, it's 75-7. Like it is unbelievable pain.
And it's gotten to the point where like even the average fan knows exactly what the Eagles are going to do on offense. Like they're going to do QB draws on 3rd down if Jack Stoll is in the game. If you see Jack Stoll, who filled in for Dallas Goedert while he was out, and he's in the game now, he's out there blocking so that Jalen Hurts can just run a QB draw, and it's so predictable, and they're not even blocking correctly. I saw Brian Baldinger put out one of his Baldy's breakdowns. Like, Jack Stoll's running the complete opposite direction of where he needs to go, leaves a linebacker uncovered, and they absolutely swallow up Jalen Hurts, and you have 3 gigantic human beings from the Seahawks defense piling up on Jalen Hurts. Don't think you want that at this point in the season. And I mean, I'm fully anticipating anyone that's going to this game on Christmas Day against the Giants. Like, it's not going to be a friendly environment that first drive for the Eagles. Like, the fans going there are going to let you hear it, and you got to be prepared for that and know that, like, you've kind of done this to yourself.
I would say this: do not go dressed as Santa to this game. It might be that kind of atmosphere. Do not go dressed as Santa Claus. That might be the best thing for you. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's so strange because a month ago you would have looked at this stretch, even last week, and said, well, like, listen, this is a stretch you can win. When you lose to Drew Lock, it really shifts the balance. I think if this team is legitimate, if this team is like kind of who we thought they were through the course of the season, it's 39-3 on Monday. Like it is a big beatdown like they have not had, by the way, in months. And part of that has been the schedule, but it has been a long time since we've seen. It's been a long time since Miami on Sunday night. Where it felt like
that's
they really
the one win this year that has a double-digit victory for this team.
Where they really felt like they handled the team, a very good team at that, and we'll see. They haven't been able to put away even some of the bad teams. You remember those Commanders games; those were a lot closer than maybe they should have been. So you hope that on Monday you kind of get just the Eagles that we were kind of expecting, and a little bit of return to form.
And I put it out on our Instagram and on TikTok of just like immediate post-game reaction. I did like a selfie video, and it's like the Eagles are much closer to the season just being over than Super Bowl aspirations at this point, the way that they're playing. Like, they got very lucky to hold on and beat the Vikings in week 2. You had that game in hand, and then you let Kirk Cousins kind of crawl back into it, and you barely sneak away with a win there on Thursday Night Football. You were very lucky to win the Cowboys game that Dallas Goedert broke his arm. Dak doesn't step out of bounds. We're talking about another loss there, and you lose the season series to the Cowboys. And then we're really talking about, this team being in the 5 seed firmly entrenched there, if not worse. You got lucky to beat the Chiefs. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Travis Kelce got butterfingers, and you win by 4 points. Jake Elliott hits the greatest field goal of his career to this point in the wind and rain to send a game to overtime, and you beat the Bills. There's a lot of these games that were super coin flip type of games this year that you do the Doctor Strange permutations, and we're talking about the Eagles having maybe a 500 record this year.
I brought it up as a joke a few weeks ago, but there was a team last year that had an outsized record and was very good at one-score games and just kind of had things go their way, and that was the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, like it's a little more similar than I think people would like to admit. Now, I think this is a better overall team, and we saw that from last year too. But listen, like they have gotten some breaks this year. Even I can remember that Commanders game. I think it was the first one where the Commanders score. They should have gone for two because there's
Yeah.
no way that you're beating the Eagles in over that. They could have gone and won the game right there.
Yep.
Like there have been moments throughout this season where things have been on a knife edge for the Eagles and they've gone away. And you can make the argument that this is a little bit of a regression here, right? That's just what we're seeing, and this team has been a little fluky. But again, that's a worry because this team's goal was to get back to the Super Bowl. This is why it's so hard too,
Yes.
right? We talked about even in before the season that you are not going to have 22 guys get back healthy like you did last year, and health is like one of the key indicators of going to Super Bowl. It's why when we're talking about the 49ers, it's listen, as long as Deebo Samuel stays healthy and everyone else stays healthy, I don't know how you beat that team. That's a question mark, though, and it's a question mark for most teams. Is just health. Health is the Patrick Mahomes a few years ago in that Super Bowl. If he doesn't have that torn up ankle, and if the offensive line isn't terrible against Tampa Bay, where they had a bunch of injuries too, maybe that Super Bowl is it just getting there and healthy is way more important than I think people want it to be because it's such a lame thing that if you just happen to accrue a few more injuries than the other team, that's why the Bills are in the position that they're in right now. Because they kept losing starters on defense. It's tough to recover from. So I think you're seeing the Eagles. This is a common thing. It's such a cliche, but it's true. Is that a Super Bowl hangover is real, and I think there's the mentality aspect of it, and there's also just it's hard to replicate what gets you to your Super Bowl, which is some luck. It takes luck getting to the Super Bowl.
And I mean, you talk about the offensive line, like arguably when they're healthy, the Eagles have the best offensive line in football. Cam Jurgens didn't play Monday night. Now Landon Dickerson is having a minor surgery and is going to miss minimal time, according to Mike Garafolo. So you might not have him on Christmas night against the Giants, which is a huge loss for this team to not potentially have two of your starting offensive linemen against a team that is hungry, a team that is like the feel-good story. Somehow the 6-8 Giants are, riding the tailwind of Tommy Cutlets and Sean Stellato, who's going to come out and, take a Louisville slugger to your kneecaps if you say one wrong thing to him. You need to be ultra focused, and the quotes today from Nick Sirianni in his press conference were not encouraging, talking about how on the final throw of the game you're playing for pass interference instead of trying to find the open man. Like you said, that's desperation play right there. You're trying to heave something and make something happen that at this point in a game, it's like a 50-50 call. You're on the road. You're not going to get that hometown treatment if you're at home potentially. And when you have a guy like Kenneth Gainwell who's got 25 yards of open space in front of you and would have got the first down to put you in Jake Elliott field goal range to tie the game, that's a question mark on just overall play calling and Nick Sirianni trying to deflect any issues from Brian Johnson and said, any anger with the offense should come from me. I think that's just coach speak. It's so evident that Nick Sirianni's not calling the offense because of everything else that he's doing during a game. Like, you can tell. And Brian Johnson has a play sheet. Like, it's so evident that this team just has so many issues with it right now. And Monday at 4:30 on Christmas Day, you better hope that they're locked in facing a Giants team that's trying to come in and somehow salvage a season and try to make the 7th seed in the playoffs.
I think they're technically eliminated now. I believe.
I saw 6 teams were eliminated. I don't know who.
Okay, they're not. It was just the Jets. I thought they were saying both New York teams. They're 5-9 now. The interesting thing is, they have the tiebreaker over the Packers, but the Packers have also sort of fallen off, and they lost to the Saints over the weekend. So the Giants, I think, have like a really massive hole to climb. But it says something about how bad the Giants season has been that they're still in the wild card race in the NFC. But like we said, the Rams do not excite me. We talked about the Vikings. Obviously, it's a little different of a team, without Kirk Cousins. But defensively, they're a team that brings a lot of pressure, and that's been something Jalen Hurts at his best has not performed well under. Again, you're maybe seeing the Seahawks again. Tampa Bay. If it's the Saints are the only team that I think if the Eagles face in the playoffs that I'm not, sweating. Honestly, I think that's the only team. If they somehow end up winning that division, that's the only team I think the Eagles could see in the first round. I'm like, we're good. we're beating this. Like everyone else, I'm like, that's a tough matchup for the Eagles. The Saints are the only one I think that there would be kind of a rollover opponent in my view.
And then right after the Eagles game, you are locked and loaded for the nightcap, and you are ultimate Baltimore Ravens fans, everybody. Because the Ravens and 49ers play.
Always been a big Lamar Jackson fan.
I have always said that purple and black is elite, and Lamar Jackson is that dude. And,
well, there's a lot of accent similarities too between like a Baltimore accent and a Philly accent, like the way they say "two," like they really kind of like there's some crossover there. I love Old Bay seasoning; it's great. It's a bird supremacy town. I appreciate that about Baltimore too. So yeah, big Ravens fan.
Birdland, Bird Gang, stand up, rise up. Flap those wings, bro. But yeah, I mean, Monday's going to be pivotal for this team. And if you think Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals are going to come in and lean over for you on New Year's Eve, you got another thing coming for you. Do you find it weird, too, that like all that hype when Zach Ertz got released and then it's all died down? Nobody has even had a peep about him?
I think it's because a lot of the good teams kind of have a starting tight end. I think I think a lot of people had like Baltimore, when Mark Andrews goes down, like that made a lot of sense, but Isaiah Likely was good. I think it's just like, I think he was kind of hoping for like a more established role potentially. Or maybe too, like he's met with a lot of teams like, listen, like there's no point in like you like running. You're clearly here as just like sort of a secondary guy. Like,
right.
We'll wait till like the, closer to the end of the season. But yeah, it has been interesting. Because the Chiefs apparently were trying out a bunch of guys the other day, and people got really worried.
He visited the 49ers.
It's fantasy semifinals, so like people were worried if they're gonna have to replace Travis Kelce and whatever, and it seemed like maybe that was gonna be a thing. But I mean, you look at like Dolphins. Hello,
Jonathan Sue visited them today too.
That would be interesting. That's the only one I see in the AFC of like the top contenders. Ravens I think are fine rolling with Likely. Chiefs obviously have Kelce. Jaguars have Evan Ingram. Bills have Kincaid and Knox. As far as contenders, 49ers of course have Kittle. Cowboys have Jake Ferguson and they have a few other like random white dudes. Detroit Lions have the best rookie tight end I've ever seen. Eagles even have Goddard. Vikings have Hawkins. Like it's just everywhere you look. I think there's just it's strangely all of a sudden a deep position.
So we'll see what happens on Monday night, and I mean, we got to predict what outfit Sean Stellato is going to wear. He wore the Kelly green, clearly has a taking to the Philadelphia Eagles and their throwbacks, but it's the holiday season for a Paisan. What the hell is he going to be wearing on the sidelines with Tommy Cutlets?
7 fishes. He's going to incorporate that. I got to say, I love it. I love that this is a thing. There's nothing more New Jersey than this story. I mean, it's truly, it's actually insane. The only way this is more insane, I don't think he went to like Don Bosco or something. Like, it's the only way this gets more North Jersey to me than this. It's just like, it's unbelievable. The only way it could have been more, I guess, too, is if he had gone to like Rutgers, right? Because I don't think he went to Syracuse, right, or something. Like I don't even remember where Tommy to be away. But that's the only way.
He's from Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah. His agent is not even from New Jersey, but it's like it just has, which hilariously too, because everyone thinks of Jersey, they think of the Jersey Shore. Like most of them were not even from New Jersey. They were from like Rhode Island. They were from like kind of the Massachusetts area. Like they weren't even, or from Long Island. Like they weren't even from New Jersey. But there's a certain type of person, and he fits. Like I have just seen this guy driving like a big Suburban. Like you have seen this person. You've seen them all the time. You've seen them when you played sports. Like they were the apparent on the other team. Like you've just seen these people, and it's amazing. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I think it's hilarious. I heard that he turned down $10,000 to show up at a pizza spot.
And then I saw he went anyway.
Yeah, he went anyway. Just a true man of integrity. I hope that he has an uncle or a grandfather that's in the waste management business or something. Like that's. It's great. I love it.
And I mean, the way that it has taken the world. I mean, he looks like the guy that's in charge of the Wet Bandits from Home Alone. Yeah. He's the guy calling the shots for them, and it's like, hey, you gotta pull this lever here, and then you gotta slip on the rug, and then you gotta go after the kid. that's what he looks like. And I mean, who knows what type of zoot suit he's gonna roll up in. I said he looked like deep cut. He looked like the boogeyman from the Powerpuff Girls. Just absolute menace. It's so funny. And I mean, what a story for Tommy DeVito. I mean, that's also going to be the talk on the national side of things, is the feel good story that is Tommy DeVito this week, and can he go into Philadelphia in a hostile environment on Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So you're gonna have that added, storyline where everybody's pulling for the underdog, and in this instance, the Eagles are not that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's weird though, with Christmas. I think there's not as much national attention on this because, like, I don't know, for I think for myself and a lot of people, Christmas is like kind of about like running around a little bit. You got to
Yeah.
do like certain things in the morning, then you got to get back. You don't want like everywhere to be a mess. You're like cleaning up stuff, getting dinner ready, like kind of rushing all over the place. It's not like Thanksgiving where it feels like Thanksgiving feels like much more you're in one place for most of your day. For the most part, you might go to like a second house or something, but like for Christmas, it just feels different. I don't know. And it's like a lot of times you get like new stuff. You want to like, you got a new book, you got a new video game system or something. Like you want to sit down with that. So maybe it won't get as. It's weird that like the NFL is trying to encroach on. I think it's just because the schedule has worked out that way.
Yeah.
But even last few years, it's felt like they've been trying to worm their way into Christmas. Like, listen, just give it to the NBA. Like, we don't have to do this.
They did the Black Friday game this year, and then they got New Year's Eve this year just for where everything falls, and who knows what's going to happen. But we'll see how the Eagles, try to take care of business against the Giants on Monday afternoon at 4:30. They're wearing the blackout uniforms for the first time. Back to the green helmets, though, with that uniform combo, because the secondary helmet was obviously loaned to the Kelly Green jerseys, and I think the midnight green with black looks far better because contrast matters. I think the Eagles' blackout uniforms are one of the best overall, like, black-on-black uniform combos in sports, and I think it's one of the best uniforms overall that is in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. I like the black on black.
So we'll shift gears from the gridiron to the baseball diamond. It is brought to you by our pals over at FOCO, where they've got holiday sweaters, they've got overalls like you saw me wearing all baseball season long, and a whole lot more of forever collectibles. FOCO is the #1 spot to go get your collectibles, from bobbleheads to figurines to obviously the apparel lines. And I mean, they've got those velour tracksuits now. You can get the Big Dom starter pack if you want. Go to the link in the description, foco.com. Click our link. Use that bad boy to support us and FOCO this holiday season. It's never too late to treat yourself to some forever collectibles. Shout out to FOCO for sponsoring the podcast. We've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto news, Matt, where apparently the big bad boys that are the coastal elites, the Dodgers and the Yankees, are the quote-unquote favorites for Yamamoto as of today. But the Phillies are quietly in the mix as well. They apparently had Bryce Harper on a FaceTime call for the pitch. They, according to Alex Coffey, are going to be ultra aggressive in their pitch to Yamamoto, and they have formally submitted an offer to him. I don't know if it's likely that the Phillies land him, but man, would it be so awesome if out of nowhere the Phillies are just like, yep, he's our guy, and finally have, one of the. It feels like the Phillies are never in the mix for these top tier talents coming from Japan, and if they're able to land a 25-year-old phenom like Yamamoto to add to this rotation with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez for that matter, there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to, March and April rolling around in spring training and everything.
Yeah, I think the important part from the story too is that they're willing to go into the third tier of the luxury tax to get him, which means that this isn't just like we're an also rank. We very likely could miss out on him, right? Like I'm not deluding myself here, but this team is serious about its intent. It's not just like, yeah, we'd like to get him. What team wouldn't? But they're really putting together an aggressive offer for him, and I think this would be a huge statement signing. And I think we're clearly, kind of the outside looking in on this, but you never know. Like I do think, there's a lot to like about the Phillies, about the team. Not I know so often a lot of especially like Japanese players want to stay like on the West Coast. Makes a ton of sense why, or they just want to be in a big market like New York. Boston's really the only other time I can remember kind of one of these other bigger cities getting one of these guys coming over from Japan. But it doesn't have to be that way always, and you can have guys that appreciate different things. Maybe this is that situation, but it does feel like this is a guy that we're just going to be wishing that we had gotten something. But the fact that, we are willing to be serious, willing to throw in the money is a positive sign to me. I like to be aggressive. I like that, we're not just going to sit back and watch it unfold, that we're going to get involved in the action. And I think too, that we're being considered serious contenders too is a good kind of marker of where we are now, that we're a team that is willing to get involved in these things. We really haven't been for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time with John Middleton. Like, anybody that's like clamoring about a team spending money in baseball specifically, it's not your money. And there's no salary cap. And you can just go out and sign guys, and there's no repercussions for you unless that guy ends up being a flop. But at the end of the day, you're able to move off of those contracts a lot more easily because there is no salary cap, and teams will be more likely to say, hey, I'll take a flyer on that guy and see if we can fix him. I mean, look at Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler gets traded from the Giants to the Mets, has all the shoulder issues, was in that quote-unquote marvelous rotation with the Mets, was kind of viewed as the number 5 guy for them, and then comes to the Phillies and absolutely turns his career around, and he's turned into a perennial Cy Young pitcher. I think the Phillies have the pitching coach staff to really tap into a guy like Yamamoto too, and really utilize his skill sets. And this is an interesting wrinkle here. This comes from CBS Sports. If you miss out on Yamamoto, Corbin Burnes is saying he's unlikely to sign an extension with the Milwaukee Brewers this offseason. He made an appearance on Foul Territory, which is one of the best independent baseball shows out there on the internet, saying that he highly values the idea of free agency, and it would be something that would just absolutely blow you away to get you away from testing the free agent market and being able to choose where you want to go. That's one thing every player in their career wants to get to, and once you get to the 6 years of service time, which for a lot of guys takes 7, 8, sometimes 9 years to get to, you get that chance to test the market and see what your top dollar is. If you missed out on Yamamoto, I think you kind of have to, take a dive into the Corbin Burnes, see what it's going to take from Milwaukee to acquire him, because he's another guy. You pair him up with Wheeler, with Nola, with Ranger Suarez, you're right there with a dominant top 4 in your rotation once again.
Yeah, he's a guy that I've had earmarked for a little bit now, because it seemed like, even going back to early last season, that he was not going to be back with Milwaukee. It seemed like a situation that was just kind of soured on both ends. I don't know what you have to give up to get him and what that looks like. But I'd be interested. Absolutely. A little bit of a down year last year. But I think, I'd be willing absolutely to take that bet on Corbin Burnes. Like, I think Burnes, Wheeler, Nola as your top 3 is really, really good. Like, that is
one of the best in baseball.
That is, that is a playoff series kind of changing top 3. And then you add in all the rest for the regular season, and I would love that.
When it comes to, I think the last thing the Phillies are missing this offseason, obviously it's the holiday season, so free agency is going to kind of take a lull right now. But I think the last things on their checklist for this offseason is to go get kind of a stopgap left fielder, go get another starting pitcher to put in this rotation and really like exercise the depth of your pitching staff, and then go and make a trade for a closer. We've talked about it before. We're like, sure, Josh Hader would be great, but he's a little bit past his prime of being like that lockdown elite closer, and you've seen him get broken before. I'd much rather go out and find a team that's looking to rebuild, has one of those elite closers, kind of like when the Phillies, when they had Ken Giles, it was one of those things that everyone wanted to go get a flame-throwing back end of the bullpen guy. Obviously, you didn't get nearly enough in terms of just overall outcome from trading Ken Giles to Houston, but that's the type of deal I think the Phillies should be kind of targeting, is looking for a team that is looking to rebuild. You have the prospects, the money, whatever it may be, and you go get an elite shutdown closer to fix this bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking to replace Craig Kimbrell. I think is kind of the number one choice now, and I think that has to be the priority. Is going into the season and going into hopefully next playoffs with a really established closer that can get it done. Because that was, I think, that's been the issue of the last two playoff runs for the Phillies, has been in some of the big moments not being able to get the stops.
It's very weird that they haven't had an elite closer since Jonathan Papelbon.
Hilariously, yeah. I think even Neris, had like a good 6 month stretch, and then we, of course, we let him go. But yeah, it has been a position I think the Phillies have been lacking for quite some time now.
So hopefully apparently the Yamamoto Sweepstakes 2 could run up all the way to the January 4th deadline. So it's going to take some time. We probably won't hear it until after the new year, but I wanted to get your take on this too, since the last time we recorded, Tyler Glasnow is now a Los Angeles Dodger, because everyone is. I don't know about you. Sure, the Dodgers are collecting like these high octane elite type of players, but they seem like a team that just has pieces rather than a full on team. If that makes any sense, where like Ohtani's not going to be able to pitch for them this coming season. Glass is in his name and he is perennially injured. Clayton Kershaw always hurt. Walker Buehler and Dustin May are coming off of Tommy John surgery, so who knows how they're going to react early on in the season and for a full duration of a year. It just feels like a team that it's Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, now you have Shohei, but the rest of the team is like, they're fine. It doesn't really like scare you overall with like 1 through 8. They have just big bats top to bottom. Like Max Muncy has his moments, but he'll go on dry spells for a month or two at a time, and he's hitting 143 and can't hit a beach ball. And I think Will Smith is like that borderline like next guy in terms of his defensive prowess as a catcher, probably the second best defensive catcher behind JT. But I mean, the Dodgers just feel like a team that they are in name more terrifying than what their roster shows right now.
Yeah, and I mean, Freeman and Betts also did not have a good playoffs last year. It's the reason for their early exit. So, yeah, it feels like they kind of have a long-term view, though, too. Like, obviously, like when you sign something like Ohtani and you have Betts and Freeman, like, you have a window here that's beyond – and the Dodgers are always going to be a team that spends money. I think it's how a lot of this – it's how the Yankees always felt to me, too, is that there's just sort of a collection of guys, and they're constantly rotating around. And I think you could say it's embarrassing that the Dodgers only have one World Series to their name this century, despite, listen, like nothing is guaranteed, right? Like you can do everything right. And again, you were just talking about the Eagles. There's a little bit of luck to all of this, but the fact you've only been able to come up with one in the COVID season of all season, it's not like, listen, I'm not going to like start discounting trophies, but if there is one World Series that I think counts a little less, if there's 1 year of championships, where the Lakers, like, it counts just a little bit less. Like if you're being really honest, counts a little bit less. It's those,
like neutral site World Series that like.
Yeah, like it's just there's no fans there. Like it was a completely different situation. You still won it. You still had to go out there and compete. I'm not taking it away from them completely, but I do think it's funny that they spent all this money and it's like they really have not done all that much with it. No. It's really
other
not
than
that impressive.
Get headlines from the LA Times saying that they had the most wins in the regular season. They should be World Series champions.
Yeah, that's stupid. But what's a smart idea is spending $500 million on those gondolas. That is the better decision.
So we'll see what happens. As the new year approaches with the baseball off season. So weird to think that pitchers and catchers is about like a month and a half away. That's
99 days away from opening day.
That's the beauty of your team being good and playing into October and playing into November is, the off season's much shorter than it was in years past. So we'll see how things shake out for the Phillies. And one guy that I was kind of interested in for them bringing him back, but it really didn't feel like it was feasible because it feels like he wants to end his career in Pittsburgh. Andrew McCutchen signed a 1-year deal with the Pirates, dropped the the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not fucking leaving video of himself, and he's just trying to get to that milestone home run for himself, which I'm happy he's coming back. And who knows, maybe he's a guy the Phillies trade for at the deadline as a bench depth piece in July and August. So we'll keep an eye on the Phils. As we shift to the hardwood, the Sixers, it's brought to you by our pals over at Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's never too late to stock up for the holiday season. They've got these awesome pint glasses that we have in the studio, great Kelly Green Kenwood merch, new hats that are available as well. And you can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the Kenny Finder to also see who has Kenwood beer on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, and Maryland areas. You can also grab it at your local liquor store. It's 4.1% ABV, just 120 calories, only 8 grams of carbs. That's kenwoodbeer.com. Use the Kenny Finder to see who's got Kenwood near you. Must be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. Matt, Sixers right now, second quarter, about at the 7-minute mark, they got a 7-point lead over the horniest team in the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who lead the Western Conference. And this is one of 2 matchups, if I'm not mistaken, between the Timberwolves and the Sixers this season. They lost the first one, so kind of another litmus test with a Western Conference team for the Sixers. Good to see Kelly Oubre back. They lost on Monday to the Bulls 108-104, which isn't great. But they went on that stretch where they were absolutely just beating down teams, including that 135-82 stomping of the Charlotte Hornets on Saturday. Team's playing well, and that's an exciting part for this team. It feels like, we've talked about it since earlier in the year that competent coaching matters, and Nick Nurse seems to be putting these guys in a position to succeed overall. And, I brought it up too, having the bench depth that this team has is so much different and so much more efficient than years past, that you have guys every single night stepping up for you in clutch moments. And this is something that, when you were kind of banking on your 2 superstars, whether it was Joel and Ben, Joel and Harden, like, you didn't really have the depth there because you were trading it away to get those guys, or, trying to maximize the value. You traded away so many pieces for Tobias Harris as well. It really feels like this team is just a deeper team and has the chemistry that in years past it hasn't felt this way.
Yeah, absolutely. The earlier game against the Timberwolves early season, no Embiid that night. So it's the first time you're going to kind of get a look at this team with your sort of top lineup, if you will. A 6-game win streak, and it just feels like this is a team, like we said, that there's just really intent on reeling you in and making you believe that this year could be different. No, I swear I changed. I went to therapy. I did all that. Like that's what they're hitting you with, is this abusive person in your life that you just can't quit. But it sucks. So it does feel like you're getting pulled in a little bit with them. But yeah, excited to see tonight how they fare against. It's still a shocking thing to say for me. Just that. The top seed, Timberwolves in the West, how good they've been this year. And a lot of that is because of Anthony Edwards, but, Cat too, sort of talked about how this has been a year where he's kind of had to accept a different role and kind of grow and mature in that way. And I think the Sixers have matured a little bit, at least for the regular season. Yeah, I think Nurse is part of that. And we'll see where the season takes them. We'll see what trade the deadline does for them and whatever. It doesn't seem like Zach LaVine is going to be a Sixer, but there's other pieces floating out there that are just as interesting, maybe even more interesting, maybe even more impactful for this team. But yeah, very excited for the Sixers, but I'm not bought in yet. I'm still cautiously keeping my distance.
It is one of those things too that it's kind of role reversal from the past couple of years, where the Sixers were so deep with guard depth, and now post Harden trade you have a bunch of wings, a bunch of forwards, and you're lacking guard depth. I forget who wrote the article, but I saw that if the Pacers keep kind of free falling from where they are in the standings, TJ McConnell could be available. Run it back, TJ, Rocco, Joel Embiid. All you need is Dario Saric at that point. I don't know if he's the answer, but it feels like that's the type of move that could happen around the trade deadline, is a TJ McConnell type, more so than like Zach LaVine or Alex Caruso, where you're not giving up a boatload of assets. And sneakily the Sixers announced a 3-year extension for Daryl Morey earlier this month. I think it was like last week or the week before, but Daryl's going to be here for another 3 years at the very least, which I think is smart. It runs you through Nick Nurse's contract with Daryl, so they're kind of paired up for the next 3 years together contractually. But is that kind of the vibe you get with the Sixers and the trade deadline, as that comes up in February, obviously, but you can now trade guys that were signed in the offseason, now that December 15th threshold is passed. Is it a TJ type of vibe, or is it potentially more for you?
I think potentially more. I think you have to be willing. You have to be willing to see what Toronto does this year too. They have some expiring contracts, and they just had Fred VanVleet leave for free this summer. There might be some pressure applied there to actually get something for some of these guys. I don't know if you're going to get on Anunoby, sweepstakes or something like that. There's going to be a lot of competition for a guy like that, but maybe who knows, right? Like you don't know what the price is always going to be for these players and anything like that. And I think that the biggest thing for the Sixers is they clearly want to retain flexibility for this offseason. So it's going to have to be a contract that makes sense for them, or a guy that is on an expiring deal, or maybe you're moving to buy, something. It's going to have to clearly involve something like that. Gordon Hayward has been like kicked around a little bit. I wouldn't hate that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they get linked with, who kind of national guys or people who are a little bit plugged in. Whoever is saying it, whether it's a team or player contacts, player agents, kind of linking in the Sixers, because I think it is clearly like more of a secondary guy, that they're looking for, and not necessarily, again, Zach LaVine just, I think, stopped making sense for this team a little bit as we started playing the games, and kind of looking in a different direction.
Are you intrigued by the concept that is Jaden Ivey because of how bad the Detroit Pistons are? I was looking at the last time the Pistons won a game, as they have won 2 games all season. I still had not turned 30 since the Pistons have won a game. The Texas Rangers have won the World Series since the last time the Pistons won a game. A whole lot has happened since October 28th, which was the last Pistons win. They've moved the Wingstop logo on their final score graphics more than they have won games in the past couple of weeks. But is Jaden Ivey somebody that kind of intrigues you as a get him out of Detroit and see what happens kind of project?
Yeah, I would. I don't know that they're going to do it. I like Jaden Ivey, coming into the draft. Don't know where he fits on this team though. That would be the only question. Like, Maxey is kind of taken over that role as more ball dominant guard, and I don't know that Ivey has that. But Ivey's a very good player. I think even Cade is a good player. I don't know that he's fit for the role. Like, I don't think he's going to be a superstar necessarily, but this is a guy that I think does have talent. Like, maybe he's a guy that's more of a role player in the future, but the team in general is just kind of a mess. So it's tough for Detroit right now. I think they're just in a bad way.
I mean, the Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Pistons have the same number of wins this year.
Yeah, well, at least one of them has their own pick. So
that's true. That's true. And I mean, we talked about it too. I guess it depends on how the Magic kind of fall into the standings and everything. Right now, they're obviously the 4 seed, but we talked about it, I think, a week or two ago, like the concept of Markelle Fultz potentially coming back.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. That'd be a hilarious full circle moment. Magic are a good team. Fultz doesn't quite fit in the picture, so it feels like he could be a guy that's on the way out. But yeah, Magic are right. I mean, right now it would be like it'd be one of the scarier matchups, I think, for a lot of teams in the East because of the size that they have and the defensive capability that they have. I would not really love playing the Magic in a playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, if the playoffs somehow started today on December 20th, the Sixers would be playing the Cavs.
I would take that.
I'd be all about that. I mean, do you think when it comes to the rest of 2023 for the Sixers, their schedule looks like this? They have obviously the game going on right now as we record this against the Pistons. Then the Raptors come to town on Friday. Then you go to Miami for Christmas. You go to Orlando. Then you go to Houston, and then you go to Chicago before the calendar turns to 2024. What's your overall hope for wins and losses in those games? Is it an undefeated stretch, or are you kind of chalking up a coin flip against the Magic with how good they are? What's kind of the hope going into 2024 with the final 5.5 games left?
I think I think really you should be winning a lot of those games. I just think Chicago by that time too could also have moved on from a few players and might be a team that's really leaned into being bad this year. The Miami Heat, who knows? Like they're literally they're not human. They're something far more sinister and evil. So there's no accounting for whatever dark magic they've conjured up. I love beating Toronto. It's just a team that I really take a lot of pleasure in beating. So not an undefeated run, but I think you might have like two losses in there, which I think would be a pretty good way to close out the calendar year.
Yeah, so hopefully the Sixers keep it rolling. As of now, they are 18-8, about 2 games out of first place in the Eastern Conference, and obviously 2 early season matchups against the Boston Celtics don't help that. But Celtics fans seem like the sky is falling for them too, and when the lights turn on, their superstars apparently aren't cutting it for them. So who knows what happens with the Celtics? They're always going to be a thorn in our side until we can consistently beat them. But we won't see them again until I think February, so we don't have to worry about them much longer until the playoffs. So that's a nice sign there. And I know, Matt, you don't care, but somehow, some way, the orange and black continue to win. They find ways to win. Owen Tippett with one of the better goals I've seen in recent years from a Flyers player in overtime. Devils fans are down absolutely bad, and the Flyers don't care about anybody wanting them to rebuild, and they are here to say, hey, we're putting points up, and we're in second place all alone in the Metropolitan Division.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm really happy for them. They're a cousin that I just don't talk to anymore. That's
Redheaded step cousin.
They're maybe getting into territory where I will like, a recent picture that they posted. Maybe. Or maybe getting there.
I've seen a lot of people on Twitter bringing this up. Would bringing Knock Knock as the post-game victory song do anything to move the needle?
That would actually move the needle the opposite way. That's clearly leaning into nostalgia bait, and it's don't do that.
So there it is. There's the Flyers Minute with Matt. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI, Twitch.tv/Underground Sports PHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you decide to consume your podcasts in audio form. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia as a whole, and helps us continue to hit new milestones. And, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week, full video episodes of every show on our network, live streams, clips, original video content. It's all on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. And go get your merch, phiapparel.co. Use code Underground for 10% off any and all merch orders. And this podcast is presented by the City of Vineland, and whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process, and their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. Everybody have a safe and happy holiday, and we will see you probably after the Eagles game, potentially. We'll let you know. We might record early, but that's why you got to follow us. But until then, this has been episode number 596 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. We're getting the heck up out of here, and we are signing off. Peace.